Jake had always been different from other guys his age. While his friends were busy climbing corporate ladders in the city, he chose to live alone in a small wooden cabin deep in the Oregon mountains. The place was perfect for what he loved most, taking pictures of wild animals and creating gadgets that helped him get closer to nature without disturbing it. At 28, Jake had turned his passion into a decent living. His wildlife photos sold well online, and outdoor magazines often bought his work. But what really excited him was inventing new ways to photograph shy animals. His latest project was something he called a gentle trap, a device that could safely hold an animal for just long enough to take amazing close-up shots, then release it completely unharmed. The trap used a special energy field instead of physical barriers. Jake had been working on it for months, teaching himself advanced electronics and energy physics through countless YouTube videos and online courses. His neighbors, the few who lived within 20 miles, thought he was a bit crazy. But Jake didn't mind. He preferred the company of deer, rabbits, and mountain birds anyway. On this particular evening in late October, fog rolled through the forest like ghostly fingers. Jake had positioned his latest trap prototype in Moonbeam Clearing, a spot locals avoided because their compasses went crazy there and their phones lost signal. Jake loved the place precisely because it was so strange. He'd captured some of his best photos there, including shots of animals that seemed to glow with their own light. The trap was motion-activated, designed to create a harmless containment field around anything larger than a house cat that walked through its sensors. Jake had tested it dozens of times with remote-controlled toys. It worked perfectly. The energy cage would hold an object gently in place for exactly 5 minutes, then automatically shut off. Walking through the misty forest with his flashlight, Jake expected to find maybe a confused raccoon or, if he was lucky, one of the area's rare silver foxes. Instead, his light fell on something that made him stop breathing altogether. Inside the shimmering blue energy field of his trap was a girl, but not like any girl he'd ever seen. She was small, maybe 5 feet tall, with skin that seemed to glow softly from within like moonlight on water. Her hair was long and silver, almost white, floating around her head as if she was underwater. Most striking were her eyes, large, violet-colored, and filled with pure terror. She was wearing what looked like a tight-fitting bodysuit made of material that shifted colors like oil on water. As Jake stared in shock, she pressed herself against the far side of the energy cage, speaking rapidly in a language that sounded like wind chimes mixed with whispered music. Jake's hands shook as he pulled out his phone to record what he was seeing. But the screen showed only static. The electronic interference in this clearing was stronger than usual tonight. He put the phone away and took a careful step closer. The moment he moved, the girl's panic increased dramatically. She pointed at herself with one delicate finger, then made biting motions with her mouth while shaking her head frantically. Over and over she repeated this gesture, pointing at herself, then mimicking eating, then shaking her head no with desperate intensity. Hey, it's okay," Jake said softly, the way he might calm a frightened animal. "I'm not going to hurt you." But his words only seemed to scare her more. She understood that he was speaking to her, which somehow made everything worse. She curled up in the corner of the energy cage, making herself as small as possible while continuing to babble in her musical language. Jake realized she thought he was going to eat her. The idea was so ridiculous that he almost laughed, but her terror was real and heartbreaking. He slowly sat down on the damp forest floor, making himself less threatening. "Look," he said gently, pulling a granola bar from his jacket pocket. He unwrapped it slowly and took a bite, chewing obviously to show he ate normal food. "See? I eat granola bars, not people, or whatever you are." The girl watched him with those huge violet eyes, clearly trying to understand. When Jake finished the granola bar and made exaggerated, yummy sounds while patting his stomach, she looked confused rather than terrified for the first time. Jake checked his watch. The trap would shut off automatically in 2 more minutes. He needed to decide what to do. This was obviously not a wild animal, and definitely not a lost hiker. The way she glowed, her strange clothing, and her otherworldly beauty all pointed to one impossible conclusion. She was an alien. A real, actual alien. And she was stuck in his trap, convinced he was some kind of monster who planned to have her for dinner. As if reading his thoughts, the girl suddenly pressed both hands against the energy barrier and spoke directly to him. Though he couldn't understand her words, her tone was pleading. She was begging for her life. Jake's heart broke a little. Whatever she was, wherever she came from, she was scared and alone and thinking her last moments were approaching. He stood up slowly and walked to the trap's control unit. "I'm going to let you go now," he said softly. "You can run away if you want. I won't chase you." The girl watched nervously as he reached for the controls. When the energy field suddenly disappeared with a soft, whooshing sound, she tensed to run. But instead of fleeing, she just stood there for a moment, swaying slightly. Jake realized she was exhausted. The terror, the stress, maybe even being caught in an energy field. It had all taken its toll. As he watched in alarm, her glowing skin began to fade, and she collapsed forward like a puppet whose strings had been cut. Without thinking, Jake rushed forward and caught her before she hit the ground. She was surprisingly light, and her skin felt warm and smooth, with a slight tingling sensation like touching a weak electrical current. Up close, he could see tiny sparkles under her skin, as if stardust was mixed into her blood. She was unconscious but breathing steadily. Her face, relaxed in sleep, looked peaceful and beautiful in a way that made Jake's chest tighten with emotions he didn't understand. Standing alone in the misty forest, holding an unconscious alien girl in his arms, Jake realized his quiet, predictable life had just become incredibly complicated. He had no idea what he was supposed to do next, but he couldn't just leave her here in the cold, damp forest. Making a decision that would change everything, Jake carefully adjusted his hold on the strange girl and began the long walk back to his cabin. Behind them, his forgotten trap powered down completely, its job done in a way he never could have imagined. The forest seemed to hold its breath as they disappeared into the fog, carrying secrets that could change the world, if anyone would believe them. Jake barely slept that night. He'd placed the alien girl on his guest bed, covering her with his softest blanket. Every few hours, he'd peek through the door to make sure she was still breathing. Her skin continued to glow faintly, like a nightlight, and sometimes she would whisper things in her musical language while dreaming. When morning sunlight filtered through the cabin windows, Jake was already awake, sitting in his kitchen with his third cup of coffee. He'd spent hours thinking about what to do. Call the government? They'd probably take her away and do terrible experiments. Call the local sheriff? Deputy Rodriguez would think Jake had finally lost his mind living alone in the woods for so long. A soft sound from the guest room made Jake freeze. She was awake. Through the thin cabin walls, he could hear movement, careful, quiet footsteps. Then silence. Jake imagined her examining everything in the room, trying to figure out where she was. He'd left some of his nature photography books on the nightstand, hoping the pictures might help her understand that he studied animals, not hunted them. 20 minutes passed before Jake heard the door creak open. He stayed very still at his kitchen table, not wanting to startle her. Slowly, a silver head peeked around the corner. Those huge violet eyes scanned the room before focusing on him. Jake smiled and waved gently. "Good morning," he said in the softest voice possible. The girl, he really needed to find out her name, pulled back slightly but didn't run. That was progress. Jake could see she was examining his cabin with the same scientific curiosity she'd shown fear the night before. Her gaze lingered on his camera equipment, his computer, and the collection of rocks and feathers he kept on his windowsill. Standing up very slowly, Jake went to his refrigerator and pulled out some strawberries. He'd read somewhere that most mammals found sweet things appealing. Maybe aliens did too. He placed a few berries on a plate and set it on the table, then backed away to show he wasn't trying to trap her. The reaction was immediate and heartbreaking. The girl's eyes went wide with terror, and she started shaking her head frantically while backing toward the door. She pointed at the strawberries, then at herself, then made the same biting motions from the night before. "No, no," Jake said quickly, realizing his mistake. From her perspective, he was offering her food to make her taste better. "Look, watch me." He picked up a strawberry and ate it himself, making exaggerated sounds. Then he ate another one. And another. The girl watched in fascination as Jake consumed half the bowl of strawberries, clearly trying to understand why a predator would eat the same food as his prey. Slowly, cautiously, she approached the table. Her movements were graceful, almost like she was floating rather than walking. Up close, Jake could see that her strange bodysuit seemed to be made of living material. It shifted and flowed across her skin like liquid metal. She reached for a strawberry, sniffed it delicately, then took the tiniest possible bite. Her face lit up with surprise and delight. The berry was clearly unlike anything from her world, but she enjoyed the sweetness. She ate the rest of it quickly, then looked at Jake with something approaching trust. "Jake," he said, pointing at himself. "My name is Jake." She tilted her head, those violet eyes studying him. Then she pointed at herself and said something that sounded like, "Zara." Close enough. "Zara?" Jake repeated. She nodded enthusiastically, a smile transforming her face from alien to simply beautiful. It was the first time Jake had seen her look happy, and it made his heart skip a beat. Over the next few hours, Jake attempted the most challenging conversation of his life, using hand gestures, crude drawings on paper, and his smartphone's camera. To show her pictures, he tried to explain what had happened. Zara was incredibly smart. She picked up English words with shocking speed and seemed to understand concepts the moment Jake illustrated them. The breakthrough came when Jake showed her his wildlife photography. Zara's eyes lit up as she scrolled through hundreds of photos on his laptop. Deer, bears, eagles, mountain lions, all captured in their natural habitat. She pointed excitedly at each animal, then at Jake's camera, clearly understanding that he studied these creatures rather than hunted them. Then Zara did something amazing. She touched the laptop screen and somehow images began appearing that Jake hadn't taken. They showed the same forest animals, but glowing with energy patterns invisible to human eyes. Deer had halos of soft blue light around their heads. Bears radiated golden warmth. Even tiny squirrels sparkled with silver threads of energy. Jake stared in wonder. "You can see all that?" Zara nodded and launched into rapid explanation in her own language, gesturing excitedly. Though Jake couldn't understand her words, her meaning was clear. She was some kind of scientist, too, studying life in ways humans couldn't even imagine. She started drawing on Jake's notepad with surprising skill. The first drawing showed a round object among trees, clearly her spacecraft. The second showed the craft with jagged lines around it, obviously damaged. The third showed Zara walking through the forest, and the fourth showed her trapped in Jake's energy cage. "You crashed," Jake said, understanding. "Your ship broke down." Zara nodded sadly, then drew another picture, herself looking up at the stars with longing. She was stranded, far from home, with no way to contact her people. The afternoon passed, quickly as they developed their unique form of communication. Jake learned that Zara's people were called something that sounded like Luminari, the light people. They came from a world orbiting a distant star, and they'd been quietly studying Earth for many years. Zara seemed fascinated by everything human. She examined Jake's books, running her fingers over the pages like she could absorb the information through touch. She was particularly interested in his nature guides, pointing at pictures of plants and making happy sounds when Jake could show her the same species growing around his cabin, but she was also clearly homesick. Several times, Jake caught her staring out the window at the sky with tears in those beautiful violet eyes. She would whisper things in her musical language that sounded like prayers or maybe lullabies from her childhood. The most awkward moment came when Zara started removing her bodysuit, apparently seeing nothing wrong with being undressed around Jake. He quickly turned away and handed her one of his flannel shirts, trying to explain through gestures that humans wore clothes. She seemed puzzled but amused by his embarrassment, chattering in what sounded like gentle teasing. As evening approached, Jake made a simple dinner of pasta and vegetables. Zara watched him cook with intense curiosity, asking questions in her language that he couldn't answer but tried to respond to anyway. When he served the food, she examined it carefully before taking a small bite. Her reaction was immediate. She made a face like she'd tasted something terrible. Jake realized that alien taste buds might work very differently than human ones, but then something wonderful happened. Zara laughed. It was a sound like silver bells chiming, and despite the language barrier, Jake understood she was laughing at her own reaction, not mocking his cooking. That night, as Jake lay in his bed listening to Zara's soft breathing from the guest room, he realized his life had changed forever. He had no idea how to help her get home, no idea what would happen if anyone discovered her, and no idea why he felt so protective of someone he'd only known for one day. But he did know one thing. He wasn't going to let anything bad happen to her. Whatever it took, he would find a way to help Zara get back to the stars where she belonged. Even if the thought of her leaving already made his chest ache with loneliness he hadn't felt since moving to the mountains. Outside his window, the stars seemed brighter than usual, as if they were calling to the strange, wonderful girl sleeping under his roof. 3 days had passed since Jake found Zara in his trap, and their daily routine was starting to feel surprisingly normal. Each morning, Jake would wake to find small gifts on his kitchen table. Perfectly arranged flower petals, smooth stones that somehow glowed with inner light, or intricate patterns drawn in what looked like stardust. Zara's English was improving rapidly. She had a gift for languages that amazed Jake, picking up new words and phrases after hearing them just once or twice. But it was more than that. She seemed to understand the feeling behind words, grasping not just what Jake said, but what he meant. "Jake," she said one morning, pointing at his camera equipment with excitement. "Show Zara picture making?" Jake grinned. Her broken English was adorable, and her enthusiasm for everything human was infectious. "Sure, I'll show you how to use the camera." He spent the morning teaching her basic photography. Zara was a natural, somehow understanding composition and lighting instinctively, but what amazed Jake was how she saw things he couldn't. Through his camera viewfinder, she would point out animals hiding in shadows that were completely invisible to him. "There," she would whisper, indicating what looked like empty forest. "Silver-tail creature, very shy, very beautiful." Jake would adjust his lens and focus where she pointed, and sure enough, a rare fox or hidden deer would materialize in the frame as if by magic. It was like having a supernatural wildlife guide. During one of these photo sessions, Zara did something that left Jake speechless. An injured sparrow lay on the ground near his cabin, its wing clearly broken. Zara knelt beside it and gently placed her glowing hands on the tiny bird. Light flowed from her fingers into the sparrow, and within seconds it chirped happily and flew away perfectly healthy. "How did you do that?" Jake asked, staring at Zara's hands. She struggled to find the English words. "My people, we have gift. Life, energy. Can share, can heal." She touched her chest. "Inside here, much light. Can give to hurt things." Jake realized he was living with someone who could perform miracles. But Zara treated her healing ability like it was the most natural thing in the world, the way Jake might offer someone a Band-Aid. Their biggest challenge was food. Zara couldn't eat most human food. It made her sick. Instead, she needed minerals that she somehow extracted from rocks and soil. Jake watched in fascination as she would hold ordinary stones, concentrate intensely, and somehow absorb nutrition from them. The rocks would crumble to dust in her hands, leaving behind a faint shimmer of light. "Your world," she explained during one of their evening conversations, "has good earth food, much energy in stones here, but different from home stones." "What do you eat on your planet?" Jake asked. Zara's eyes grew distant and sad. "Crystal fruits. Light flowers. Water that sings." She struggled with the words. "Everything on Homeworld has music inside. Can hear the songs of growing things." Jake wished he could comfort her homesickness, but he was beginning to understand just how different their worlds really were. Zara's people didn't just live on their planet. They seemed to be connected to it in ways humans never could be. The most awkward moments came from their different ideas about privacy and personal space. Zara's people apparently didn't have the same boundaries humans did. She thought nothing of wandering around Jake's cabin in just his oversized t-shirts, her long silver hair catching the light like spun moonbeams. She would casually touch his arm while talking, or rest her head on his shoulder when she was tired, completely unaware of the effect she was having on him. Jake tried to explain human customs without making her feel bad. "On Earth," he said carefully, "when people touch each other a lot, it usually means they care about each other in a special way." Zara tilted her head with that adorable, confused expression. "Jake not care about Zara?" "No, I do care about you," Jake said quickly, his face turning red. "I care about you a lot. That's the problem." She studied his face with those incredible violet eyes. "Problem? Caring is problem?" Jake realized he was digging himself into a hole. How do you explain romantic feelings to someone from another world? "It's complicated," he said finally, but Zara was learning to read human emotions better than Jake realized. That evening, she kept a careful distance from him, and Jake immediately missed her casual touches. He felt like an idiot for making her feel unwelcome. Their peaceful routine was interrupted on the fourth day when Jake noticed something troubling. Military helicopters had been flying over the area more frequently, and he'd seen government vehicles on the back roads leading toward his property. Someone was definitely searching for something in the forest. Zara confirmed his fears. "Sky machines come looking," she said, watching a helicopter pass overhead. "They feel the crash energy from my ship. Soon they find crash place." "What happens?" "If they find you?" Jake asked. Zara's glow dimmed with fear. "My people have rule. Never let other species find us. If caught..." She made a cutting gesture across her throat. "Very bad for both worlds." Jake felt cold dread in his stomach. "They would hurt you?" "Not hurt. Take away. Study like animal in cage. And my people would think humans are dangerous. Might stop watching Earth. Might decide humans too risky to let live." The implications hit Jake like a punch. If the government found Zara, it wouldn't just be bad for her, it could mean disaster for all of humanity. Her people had the technology to travel between stars. If they decided humans were a threat... "We need to find your ship," Jake said. "Can you fix it?" Zara shook her head sadly. "Ship too broken, needs special crystals from Homeworld, but..." She paused, thinking. "Maybe can make signal caller. Tell my people where Zara is." "What do you need?" "Earth metals and sky energy, your lightning power." She gestured at his electronic equipment. "Mix home knowledge with Earth tools." Jake looked at his modest collection of cameras, computers, and gadgets. "You can build a communicator with this stuff?" Zara smiled, and for the first time since he'd found her, she looked truly hopeful. Zara, very good builder. Make impossible. Things work. That evening, they hiked to the crash site. Jake's heart sank when he saw the wreckage. Zara's ship had been beautiful once, a graceful curved vessel that looked like it was grown rather than built. Now it was scattered across a quarter-mile of forest, twisted metal and strange crystalline components glittering in the fading sunlight. But Zara moved through the debris with purpose, gathering specific pieces and components. Some items looked almost magical, crystals that hummed with energy, metal that felt warm to the touch, and what looked like liquid light trapped in transparent containers. "Can work with this," she said, filling Jake's backpack with salvaged parts. "Mix with earth tools, make new thing." As they hiked back to the cabin in darkness, Jake realized he was caught between hope and heartbreak. If Zara could contact her people, she might be saved. But that would mean she'd leave Earth and leave him forever. He glanced at her walking beside him, her skin glowing softly in the moonlight, and wondered when exactly he'd fallen in love with an alien girl. More importantly, he wondered what he was going to do about it. Behind them, the wreckage of Zara's ship lay scattered in the forest, holding the key to her freedom and his inevitable loneliness. But for tonight, she was still here, still safe, and still looking at him with those amazing violet eyes like he was the most fascinating thing in the universe. Jake decided that was enough. For now, it had to be enough. For 3 days, Jake's cabin looked like a mad scientist's laboratory. Zara had spread her salvage ship components across every surface, mixing alien technology with Jake's cameras, computer parts, and electronic equipment. The air hummed with strange energy, and sometimes sparks of colored light danced between her fingers as she worked. Jake tried to help, but mostly he just watched in amazement as Zara created impossible things. She could make metal bend like clay just by touching it, and somehow convinced his laptop battery to power crystals that glowed brighter than the sun. Her knowledge of energy and matter seemed to come from a completely different understanding of how the universe worked. "This piece," she said, holding up what looked like a broken smartphone screen, "can catch star songs from home, but need more. Sky power." She gestured at the storm clouds gathering outside. "Rain lightning comes soon. Perfect energy." Jake looked out at the approaching thunderstorm. "You want to use lightning to power your communicator?" "Yes." "Lightning is pure sky energy. Very strong, very good for calling across star distance." Zara's eyes sparkled with excitement. Jake helped Zara catch Sci-Fi? The idea of standing outside in a thunderstorm trying to capture lightning strikes seemed completely insane. But Jake found himself nodding. He'd do anything to help her contact her people, even if it meant she'd leave him forever. That evening, as rain began to fall, they carried Zara's strange device to the clearing where Jake had first found her. The communicator looked like something from a dream. Part alien crystal, part human electronics, all held together with what appeared to be liquid starlight. "When Sci-Fi comes," Zara explained, "Jake hold this." She handed him a metal rod, connected to her device. "Zara will guide energy into Starcaller. Very dangerous, but Zara protect Jake." "What if something goes wrong?" Jake asked, rain soaking through his jacket. Zara took his free hand in both of hers. Her skin was warm and tingly with energy. "Jake trust Zara?" Looking into those beautiful violet eyes, Jake realized he trusted her completely. More than that, somewhere during their week together, he'd fallen deeply in love with her. The thought of losing her was breaking his heart, but he couldn't be selfish. She needed to go home. "I trust you," he said softly. The first lightning strike illuminated the forest like daylight. Zara raised her hands, and impossibly, the electricity seemed to bend toward her. Jake felt the metal rod in his hands grow hot as incredible energy flowed through it into Zara's communicator. The device began to glow then sing with a sound like distant music. But something was wrong. More lightning was coming, stronger than Zara had expected. Jake saw her struggling to control the massive energy flowing around them. Her skin was blazing so bright it hurt to look at her directly. "Zara!" he shouted over the thunder. "It's too much!" She looked at him with desperate eyes. "Cannot stop now! Almost connected to home!" The next lightning bolt was enormous. Jake watched in horror as it struck their metal rod with devastating force. The energy was too much for even Zara to handle. He saw her cry out in pain as the electricity coursed through her body. Without thinking, Jake dropped the rod and grabbed Zara's hands. The moment their skin touched, something incredible happened. Instead of being burned by the lightning energy, Jake somehow absorbed part of it. The overwhelming power flowing through Zara was suddenly shared between them, making it manageable. Zara stared at him in shock. "How'd Jake do this? Humans cannot touch Sci-Fi." "I don't know," Jake gasped, feeling electricity tingling through every nerve in his body. "But I'm not letting go." Together, they guided the lightning into Zara's communicator. The device sang louder and brighter until suddenly, impossibly, Jake heard voices. Alien voices, musical and concerned, speaking in Zara's language across the vast distance of space. Zara began talking rapidly in her own tongue, crying with joy and relief. Jake couldn't understand the words, but he could feel her emotions through. Their connected hands, love, homesickness, desperation, and hope all mixed together. The conversation lasted only minutes before the storm moved on and the connection faded. Zara's communicator went dark, and the forest returned to normal silence except for the gentle patter of rain. "Did it work?" Jake asked. "Did you reach them?" Zara nodded, tears streaming down her glowing cheeks. "Yes, my people know where Zara is. They come soon." She paused, looking at their still joined hands. "But Jake, what happened when we touched? Humans should not be able to share energy like that." Jake didn't know how to explain it. When he'd grabbed her hands, desperate to help her, it felt like the most natural thing in the world, like they were meant to be connected. "Maybe some humans are different," he said quietly. "Maybe," Zara whispered, studying his face with new interest. They walked back to the cabin in comfortable silence, both lost in thought. Jake's heart was breaking. Her people were coming, probably within hours. Soon she'd be gone forever, returning to her world of crystal cities and singing water. Inside the warm cabin, they sat together on Jake's old couch, neither wanting to talk about what came next. Zara seemed different somehow, more serious than he'd ever seen her. "Jake," she said finally, "Zara want to show something special, something my people only share with chosen ones." Before he could ask what she meant, Zara placed her glowing hands on either side of his face. Suddenly, Jake's mind filled with the most beautiful images he'd ever seen. He was seeing Zara's world through her memories. Crystal towers that sang in harmony with the wind, forests of trees made of living light, oceans that glowed with bioluminescence, where creatures of pure energy swam like liquid rainbows, cities floating among the clouds, connected by bridges of solid starlight. But more than that, he was feeling what she felt. Her love for her home, her loneliness during the crash, her fear when she first saw him, and something else, something that made his heart race. She cared about him, really cared about him, in a way that transcended species or worlds. When the vision ended, Jake found himself staring into Zara's eyes with tears running down his cheeks. "Your world is amazing," he whispered. "Jake's world amazing too," she replied softly. Jake showed Zara beauty in simple things, kindness to small creatures, love for growing things. Jake has beautiful heart. They sat in silence, both understanding that something profound had just happened between them. Jake had seen her world, felt her feelings, experienced a connection, deeper than anything he'd ever known with another person. "I'm going to miss you," he said, his voice breaking. Zara's glow dimmed with sadness. Zara missed Jake, too. Very much. Outside, the storm was ending, and stars began to appear through breaking clouds. Somewhere among those stars, Zara's people were traveling toward Earth at impossible speeds. Soon they would take her home, and Jake would be alone again in his mountain cabin. But tonight, she was still here. Tonight, they had each other. And for the first time since building his communicator, Jake wondered if there might be more options than just goodbye. He looked at Zara, sitting beside him with starlight in her hair and galaxies in her eyes, and realized that sometimes the most impossible things were the ones most worth fighting for. Maybe their story didn't have to end with her leaving. Maybe, just maybe, it was about to begin. Jake woke before dawn to find Zara standing at his window, staring at the stars with tears glowing silver on her cheeks. Her rescue ship would arrive today. She'd felt their approach in her dreams, she said, like a gentle calling in her mind. "Are you ready to go home?" Jake asked softly, joining her at the window. Zara didn't answer immediately. When she spoke, her voice was small and uncertain. "Home feels different now. After knowing Jake, after seeing Earth beauty, Zara not so sure where home really is." Jake's heart ached. He'd spent the night thinking about everything they'd shared, the wonder in her eyes when she saw her first sunrise, the way she laughed at his terrible jokes, how she'd healed that injured sparrow without a second thought. In just 1 week, she'd become the most important person in his world. "Your people must be worried about you," he said, trying to be unselfish. "Yes, very worried." But also, Zara turned to face him, and Jake was surprised to see determination in her violet eyes. Zara told them about Jake, about human who caught Stargirl in trap but chose kindness instead of harm, about human who can touch Sci-Fi and share energy, like luminary person. What did they say? Zara smiled mysteriously. "They want to meet Jake." Before Jake could ask what that meant, a sound like distant music filled the air. Outside the window, impossible lights began dancing between the trees, not harsh like human technology, but soft and warm like captured starlight. "They're here," Zara whispered, her skin beginning to glow brighter. Together, they walked outside into Jake's clearing. A ship was descending through the morning mist, not landing so much as gracefully settling like a falling leaf. It was beautiful. Beyond description, shaped like a teardrop made of pearl and silver, humming with gentle energy. 3 beings emerged from the ship, and Jake's breath caught in his throat. They looked like Zara, but older, more ethereal, with skin that shone like moonlight on water. The tallest one, clearly their leader, approached with movements that seemed to flow rather than walk. Zara spoke rapidly in her musical language, gesturing between Jake and her people. Jake caught his name several times and words that sounded like explanations. The leader listened carefully, then studied Jake with eyes like liquid starlight. When the leader spoke, Jake was amazed to hear English words, though with the same musical accent as Zara. "You are Jake, the one who protected our Zara." Yes, sir. Yes." Jake had no idea how to address an alien being who might be thousands of years old. "I am Keeper Luminous. We have traveled far to retrieve our lost one." The being's gaze was intense but not unfriendly. "Zara has told us interesting things about you, Jake of Earth. She told you I helped her build a communicator?" "More than that." Keeper Luminous exchanged a meaningful look with Zara. "She told us you can share energy, that you touched Sci-Fi without being harmed. This should be impossible for your species." Jake felt embarrassed under their scrutiny. "I don't know how I did it." I just wanted to help her." "Show us," said one of the other beings, younger than the keeper but still ancient by human standards. Zara moved to stand beside Jake. "Jake, give Zara a hand." Confused but trusting, Jake took her hand. Immediately, warmth flowed between them. But this time was different, stronger somehow. Light began to dance around their joined hands, and Jake felt energy flowing not just from Zara to him, but from him to her as well. The three luminary beings made sounds of amazement in their own language. Keeper Luminous stepped closer, studying the light surrounding Jake and Zara's hands. "Incredible," the Keeper murmured. "In all our travels, we have never seen a human capable of energy sharing. Jake of Earth, you are a very rare being." "What does it mean?" Jake asked. Before the Keeper could answer, Zara spoke up in English, clearly wanting Jake to understand every word. "Long ago, my people had legend. Stories of other species who could share energy like us. We thought they were just myths. But maybe some humans have gift that sleeps until awakened." "Awakened by what?" Zara squeezed his hand gently, and more light danced around their fingers. "By caring. By love strong enough to reach across stars." Jake felt his cheeks burn with embarrassment, but he couldn't deny what he felt for Zara. It was written in the energy flowing between them, visible to everyone present. Keeper Luminous observed them for long minutes, then spoke quietly with the other luminari in their own language. Jake caught words that sounded like debate, concern, and hope. Finally, the Keeper turned back to them. "We face a choice," the ancient being said. "By our laws, contact between species must remain secret. But you, Jake of Earth, have proven yourself worthy of trust. And more than that, you have awakened something in yourself that makes you partially like us." "What are you saying?" Jake asked, hardly daring to hope. "We offer you two paths," Keeper Luminous explained. "First path, Zara returns with us. Your memories of her are gently removed. You return to your old life, never knowing star people exist." Jake's heart sank. "And the second path?" The Keeper smiled, and it transformed the alien face with warmth. "Second path, you come with us. Learn our ways, become bridge between your world and ours. Help us study Earth while protecting both species from harmful contact." Jake stared in shock. "You're asking me to leave Earth?" "Not forever," Zara said. Quickly. "We travel, yes, see Zara's homeworld, learn star knowledge, but also return to Earth. Watch over it. Make sure both humans and luminaries stay safe. You would be first human ambassador to the stars," the Keeper added. "Great honor, great responsibility, but also great joy. You would not be separated from Zara." Jake looked around at his cabin, his forest, his simple life taking pictures of wildlife. Then he looked at Zara, glowing like captured starlight, offering him the universe. "What about my life here? My work? Your pictures show great love for Earth life," one of the younger luminaries said. "Imagine pictures you could take of worlds, beyond counting. Creatures made of living light, forests that sing with their own voices." Jake's mind reeled. They were offering him everything he'd ever dreamed of: adventure, discovery, and the chance to stay with Zara. But it meant leaving behind everything he'd ever known. "Jake not have to decide now," Zara said gently, seeing his confusion. "Can visit first. See if Jake likes star traveling. If not, Luminari bring Jake home." "Really?" Keeper Luminous nodded. "We have waited centuries to find human worthy of trust. We will not force choice on such a being." Jake looked at Zara's hopeful face, at the beautiful ship waiting to carry them, to worlds beyond imagination, at the chance to be part of something bigger than himself. "Will I still be human?" "Always," the keeper assured him. Energy-sharing gift does not change what you are, only gives you ability to survive among stars and communicate across species. Jake took a deep breath, thinking of his lonely cabin, his quiet life, his small world. Then he looked at Zara and saw galaxies of possibility in her violet eyes. "Okay," he said quietly, then louder. "Okay, I'll try it." Zara's face lit up brighter than the sun. She threw her arms around Jake, and light exploded around them in celebration. The other Luminari made musical sounds of joy. An hour later, Jake stood at the edge of his clearing with a small backpack of belongings, looking back at his cabin one last time. It wasn't goodbye forever, he told himself. Just the beginning of the greatest adventure possible. Zara took his hand as they approached the ship. "Jake scared?" "Terrified," Jake admitted, "but also excited." "Good," she laughed. "Best adventures start with being scared." As the ship rose silently into the dawn sky, Jake looked down at Earth growing smaller below them. Somewhere up there, among the stars, was Zara's world of crystal cities and singing waters. Somewhere out there was a universe full of wonders he couldn't even imagine, and beside him, glowing like a captured star, was the alien girl who had crashed into his life and changed everything. The girl he'd caught in a trap, who had been afraid he would eat her, but who had instead stolen his heart completely. Jake squeezed her hand and felt energy flow between them. Human and alien, earth and stars, fear and love all mixed together in perfect harmony. As they flew toward the cosmos, Jake realized his story wasn't ending. It was just beginning.